Hey guys, this is Dan with Stout Gaming, and we are here with Hunter and Tay to break down our MDL Season 3 draft. So, Hunter and I will be coaches in the league this season, and Tay was a coach last season, but is just going to be operating as a fan today. So, how are you guys doing today?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, doing good.
Absolutely. But before we get started, we just want to have a quick word from our sponsors. Bacon bits. Why have bacon strips when you can have bacon bits? Bacon bits go on a salad, so they're practically health food. Hunter, Tay, any comment on our sponsors, Bacon Bits?
Uh, yeah, bacon bits. Yeah, they're great. Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I used to eat these just like by themselves as a kid.
Oh, really?
All
Yeah, they're
right.
good.
Thank you guys
Banging.
so much for the kind words about our sponsor, Bacon Bits. So, before we get into the teams, I just wanted to talk about the methodology. Hunter and Tay will be discussing the teams more generally, but I've also included my power rankings. I just wanted to make a couple of things clear about power rankings generally. First of all, I am not taking into account coach and playstyle when doing power rankings. For example, if Matt had a bulky steel type, I don't rate that any higher than if any other coach had a bulky steel type, even though he's shown the ability to play with a bulky steel type in the past. The way that I'm going to be doing this is I'm going to be imagining if we had 100 about equally skilled VGC players, and they were each given these rosters and played each other in a massive round robin. I think that's 650 games or so for the various teams. This is about what the final standings of the 14 teams would be, and that also means that it's not necessarily, I believe, one that has a better ranking could always beat one that has a worse ranking. The example, if the number 2 seed was a 60% favorite over the number 1 team, the number 1 team has a 60% win rate versus teams 3 through 14, but number 2 only has a 54% win rate against 3 through 14, then that would justify number 1 being above number 2, even if number 2 would beat number 1 heads up. I just wanted to get that out of the way. Does that make sense to you guys?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, so this is nothing about the players or not even much about the teams because I will say this year we had some very good teams, and I'd say even the bottom teams in the draft this year by my power rankings are much better than the bottom teams last year. I think there's been a lot of good improvement. So with that being said, let's go ahead and dig into it, and I will be going in draft order, not power ranking order. So the first team I wanted to talk about was Burst's team. He had Tapu Fini, Urshifu Single Strike, Togetic, Magnezone, Talonflame, Morgrem, Mesprit, Lycanroc Dusk, Sceptile, Piloswine, and Altaria. I have him power ranking number 14, which does mean he is the last place team on my power ranking, but like I said, it's really close between a lot of teams. My first thought looking at this team is it's really weak to poison types, which is a weird thing to be weak to, but he's got 3 fairies and Sceptile. And I really think a strong poison special attacker, maybe something poison fire, something like Salazzle or even Naganadel sticks out to me as hitting really hard into his team, but I think it's definitely got some solid modes as well. What do you guys think?
Yeah. So one of the first things that I noticed about this team is the top three on his team. So that would be Tapu Fini, Urshifu, Togetic. I think that's really solid. And also another thing that I really, excuse me, one thing I really liked is actually the Magnezone pick. And I didn't realize this until I was doing my own power rankings and I was looking through. But there are a lot of steel types that like to that need like certain support Pokemon that were taken early on. And Magnet Pull on Magnezone is actually a really cool tech. For example, like Metagross on my team, Celesteela, like those are just a couple of the Pokemon Kartana. So like I think the Magnet Pull tech is actually really solid, and I actually like I didn't notice that at first, and I actually had Burst lower, but it actually bumped Burst up a little bit on my power ranking. And then the Sceptile with Unburden's pretty cool. And Morgrem's also really solid. So
Yeah, I don't have much to say about that either. I think the Magnezone pick was really good for him. Um, and like kind of what Hunter said too about the unburned Sceptile. I always forget that Sceptile gets that.
Mhm.
It's just I've never really seen it be used, especially like in a doubles league. I always see it in a singles league, but not really in a doubles league. So,
right, yeah, same here.
same with the Morgan too. I've always liked Morgan. Morgan's pretty good.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then one more thing that I noticed was the Talonflame pick. I think the Talonflame's pretty unexplored in draft. Like it's pretty one-dimensional, I think, with Gale Wings, but I think people like I think Matt last season really showed how awesome Prankster Tailwind can be, or like Priority Tailwind. And I think with Urshifu and Tapu Fini and bulkier Pokemon like Piloswine and like the Dynamax, I think Priority Tailwind is like extremely solid. So yeah, I just want to point that out.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that, and I do think the Magnezone is a really nice glue piece on this team. I just know from a bit of past experience that double fairy is a lot of weaknesses that you have to deal with, and so the triple fairy here just brings me to have like a little bit of pause, especially when two of his top 3 Pokemon are fairy type and have very similar weaknesses. Like even their secondary typing, they're both weak to electric as well.
Electric, yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
All right, but let's go ahead and move on. Next up in the draft, we had Dark's team. I ended up having him as power ranking 13. But Hunter, why don't you take a crack at this team first, then we can...
Sure. Okay, so I just want to say, I was actually eyeing Togekiss, so the snipe was real with this one. But I wasn't expecting it to go second overall. So I mean, props to Dark for taking it away from me, but. Togekiss is actually like insanely solid, and I think people forget because of how prevalent the legendary Pokemon were in Series 8, how awesome Togekiss was in the early metas. Like I think Togekiss was on 90% of the teams I saw on the ladder, and I don't even think that's hyperbole. Like I think Togekiss is extremely solid. And then on top of that, Sandrush Dracozolt with Hippowdon is extremely unexplored, I think. And I think I think Dark's a good enough player to make it work, and he's got Pokemon like Milotic, which can have competitive, which is really great. He's got Pokemon like Chandelure, which is just an offensive threat, and then also he can do the Imprison Trick Room thing, so it's like an answer to Trick Room, which honestly I don't really see an answer to on this team. So I think that's actually like a really good patch for that. I mean, Pangoro's going to Trick Room, and you can also reverse it with Uxie, but like, I mean, that's not really as consistent as other things. I think Imprison Trick Room is extremely solid to cover up the Trick Room patch. And then he's got a bunch of really good, so like solid lower tier picks. Like I think Lycanroc, that's the day form, I think. Yeah, so I think it's pretty good. It's not as great as Dusk, obviously, but I think it's still solid. I think it's great value for tier 4. Same with Pangoro. I think we've seen Pangoro the last 2 seasons put in work when it wasn't really expected to put in work. So I think Pangoro is a really, really great value pick here. One knock that I have to say about this team is I am kind of unclear on the reason why he picked Hippowdon over Gigalith. And like, there's nothing wrong with Hippowdon. It's just I think that there's a big gap between Gigalith and Hippowdon when it comes to versatility in VGC. So like he drafted Hippowdon in round 3, right? If I'm not mistaken, I think he drafted in round 3.
Yeah, I think that's correct.
Yeah. So I think, like I said, there's nothing wrong with Hippowdon, I don't think, but I think the versatility of Dynamaxing Gigalith with weakness policy, because he has the Scizor, right? So he can do Bullet Punch. Like I just think there's like that you're missing a lot of firepower with that. And like but like I said, like there's nothing wrong with Hippowdon. It's just I think Gigalith just adds a little bit of extra oomph, and I think teams really have to prepare for that, especially teams that are really weak to Rock Slide. Because like he can set Trick Room with Uxie, right? Like, or like he can have Gigalith as an extra Trick Room option. Because Hippowdon's slow anyway, so you're not really losing any any speed tier by drafting Gigalith, so that's not really an
Mhm.
issue here. And like you're setting Sam with both, right? And they share weaknesses. Um, so like I mean I think he's missing a little bit there, but like I think that's like one of the only knocks I have with this team. Personally.
Yeah, Tay, what about you?
Yeah. Yeah, there was like two things that kind of like stood out to me when I first looked at his team. And they both kind of relate to each other, but he has two major weaknesses. One with fire and then one with ground and rock too, and honestly in a way. Um, so I mean I'm kind of interested to see how he combats that, but I mean he has like some good modes here. For some reason I don't know how he does it. He always gets Milotic and Dracozolt. I don't know how he does it, but he always seems to get those two mons. But yeah, I think those big weaknesses that he has were kind of the things that kind of stood out to me. Even
Yeah.
in the water weakness, now that I'm looking at it.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, I think I'm a bit lower on this team than you, Hunter. I have it as my 13th team in the power ranking. I know last season Ryan was very underwhelmed with Togekiss as his third tier 1 option and said he wouldn't draft it again. So seeing it go number 2 overall was a bit shocking. I understand how it fits with the
Right.
Sandrush team, but also Sandrush is really his only mode because the Lycanroc gets Sandrush, the Dracozolt gets Sandrush, the Hippowdon's going to set the sand, and then he doesn't really have a lot of other speed control. Does Delibird get Tailwind? Like, because if so, that's his best Tailwind setter,
Right,
which
yeah.
is questionable, and I don't even know if it gets it. And then the lack of a Trick Room mode, like yeah, maybe the Uxie and Pangoro can be a Trick Room mode, but it's not. It doesn't hit very hard as a Trick Room mode. Like if I'm building against him, I'm not super scared of the Trick Room mode. Like I'm very scared of the Sand mode, but that's really the only thing I have to play against. And then, like you were saying, Trick Room denial is a big issue for his team. Yeah, Imprisoned Chandelure can deny Trick Room, but that's only as long as Chandelure can stay alive, and Chandelure has the same defenses as like a wet paper bag a lot of the time. Like, I understand that is one good way to deny Trick Room, and it will work for a turn or two, but I don't really see Chandelure living through a lot to be a sort of long-term denial. Maybe the Togekiss redirecting it could help, and I do like the synergy of a lot of his top picks, but I'm just worried that it's very one track, and it's not going to be able to move off that track as frequently.
Right. So one more thing, Delibird does not actually get Tailwind.
Oh.
So
Yep.
that's the thing.
Okay, yeah. So, like I was saying, the speed control options are a little sus, but
Absolutely.
otherwise, I think he does have a very solid mode that is going to be hard to beat, but everyone that plays him is going to know that that's the mode they have to go against, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so Tay, I'm going to let you handle Toxic's team, the first breakdown of this one.
Yeah. I kind of do like Toxic's team. I think those first three picks of his with the Dragapult, the Fairy, and the Blastoise, those are really good. Even with the Crocodile too, I like those first four picks. I think those are really solid. I can tell you now, I can't stand Togedemaru. I've always had a vendetta against it. It did me dirty one time in a singles draft season, but um, I think those first four picks for him, especially with that Blastoise has always been a problem for a lot of people. Especially when like Izzy uses it. Izzy knows how to use that Blastoise very well, but I think with Toxic, I think what did I notice? I was looking at this. I think it was like some sort of a trick room thing. I might have looked at it at that way. I don't think so, but that Clefairy, and even Frostmoth. Now I'm looking at the Frostmoth too. The Frostmoth's gonna be really good for him. There's a lot of mons in here that I think I didn't really like notice any blurring weaknesses when I was looking at his team. I mean, I guess you can say fire now that I'm saying it. But other than that, I think Toxic's team isn't, bad, and I see where you have him on the power ranking at 10. So that's kind of towards lower, but a little bit in the middle. But I think there's a lot of things that he can do with his team. It's just a matter of figuring out all the different synergies that he can use.
Yeah, I agree. I think each piece on this team is pretty solid. Maybe
Yeah.
Crocodile's a little underwhelming in tier 2 because it's only got 117 attack, and that just seems a bit low for what he needs out of that slot, but I think it's got a lot of solid pieces. I think the problem is he's not going to be able to tap into the versatility of a lot of these mons where their strength is versatility, because he's going to need them for that damage output, because like I said, the Crocodile's got the low damage output, Blastoise needs to Shell Smash, and then specifically I was looking at the Dragapult. He's not going to be able to run a lot of support Dragapult sets, I don't think, because he needs it for the damage output. Like, I think his team in general has a lot of good Pokemon that have really good support sets, like support Blastoise with Yawn, Fake Out, stuff like that. Great Pokemon. Support Dragapult with Reflect, Light Screen, Breaking Swipe. Great Pokemon. But if he's running that and Clefairy, he doesn't have a lot of damage potential. So I think he's sort of pigeonholing some of his more versatile mons into a more offensive role that they can do, but it makes prep against it a little easy because you don't have to worry about both the support and offensive sets, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I feel like he has like more support mons than, like offensive mons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was it, Hunter?
So, yeah, sure. Okay, so one thing I'm actually very impressed with is the type distribution that he did with this. I think he's checked almost every single box that is needed really in Draft League. He's got the Firewater Grass Core. He's got the Fairy Dragon Steel Core. He's got 2 Trick Room Setters with Reuniclus and Carbink, which, by the way, don't sleep on Carbink, okay? Because with Sturdy, you can have a Mental Herb on it, and it basically has a Focus Sash and a Mental Herb on it. So it's very hard to deny Trick Room with Carbink, which is, and I actually have experience with it, so I can say that firsthand. So the one thing that I really noticed with this team is, I think, actually, Dan, there's a little bit of an echo chamber. I'm sorry. Like a lot of mons that he needs to like set up with, it's just like you have good redirection, right? And you have Fake Out, and but I think you're okay. So for like with Dragapult, right? Like you don't really need to set up with Dragapult. But in some situations, for certain calcs against really bulky mons, like I see a lot of bulky offense in this league, I think you're going to need to want to set up with it occasionally. And same with Blastoise too. Tay covered that. Like you need a Shell Smash with it, you know what I mean? So, and then with Crocodile, like Crocodile's good, right? Like Intimidate, Snarl, you know what I mean? But, okay, so like, I think you covered that too. It's like kind of underwhelming for a tier 2 pick. Especially like your first tier 2 pick. You know what I mean? Because like,
I think Blastoise was his first pick, but
yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I for some reason I thought Blastoise was tier 1. I'm sorry. So, Crocodile. I mean, it's kind of questionable, but at the same time, I think it could be really solid. Frostmoth is really good. That special defense set is ridiculous if you have Ice Scales and Assault Vest on it. So, I think he has great options. It's just. Also, I see like a little weakness to ground, by the way. Yeah. And by little, I mean he has like 1 or 2 switch-ins to ground, which I mean could be an issue, but at the same time, like I think he can work around that a little bit. I think I had him a little higher than you did, but because I think he's a good player, so I think he can work around it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he's going up against like a lot of talent in this league. And, like, your talent can only get you so far in this league, honestly, because, like, I'm looking down the list right now, and there's, like, tournament-level players like crazy. So, like, not saying he's not, but, like, you know what I mean? Like, you gotta weigh your options a little bit more there. So.
Yeah, that's why for my power rankings I took out the player, because I think he's a good player, and this is the type of team that he can make work. But just the team itself, I think, falls short of a couple of the other teams, especially in terms of how it matches up into his own division.
Right.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I feel like if he had a little bit more offensive pressure, he can move that ranking up a little more.
Yeah, I agree with that. But let's go ahead and dive into this next team. It's John's team. So I'll handle this one. It's got Rillaboom, Volcarona, Tier 1, shout out, Suicune, Comfey, Regirock, Hitmonlee, Mandibuzz, Cradily, Aurorus, Alolan Dugtrio, and Fletchlander. I've never actually played with that Pokemon, so I don't know how it's pronounced.
Yeah.
My first thought here is that he immediately completed his Fire, Water, Grass core, and he's got a lot of really good support options. Like Suicune, I really want to make it work in draft all the time. It's always on my draft board. I even picked it last season, but I dropped it after week 1 because I had too many water types. But I think the biggest issue I have with this team is the lack of offensive pressure. Like Mandibuzz, great support. Aurorus, weather control, decent offenses, I guess. Suicune, really good support. But like outside of Rillaboom and Volcarona and maybe like Unburden, Hitmonlee, and Comfey setting Trick Room and trying to get a Regirock going in there, like there's not a lot of offensive pressure that this team has, and I'm afraid that while it's really good defensively and can control a lot of the game, it's going to get overpowered by a bunch of the other teams. What are your guys' thoughts on this?
Okay. So I really like his Fire, Water, Grass core with Rillaboom, Volcarona, and Suicune. I think that's pretty solid. And on top of that, I'm like pretty sure that Suicune gets Tailwind, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so he has a Tailwind option, which is cool. So he's got 2 forms of speed control, which I commend him, and he also has the Tailwind on Fletchinder, if I'm not mistaken.
And I believe it has Gale Wings too.
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he does have priority Tailwind as well.
Right. But that's also using a Tier 5, which I actually commend him for getting because I believe who took Talonflame? Was it Burst?
Burst,
I
I
think
believe it
Burst
was
has
Burst.
Talonflame. Yeah. So he's getting the value of priority Tailwind in Tier 5, while Burst was using a Tier 2 on it. So I actually commend John on that. Because Prankster Tailwind, like I said, I think it's like extremely good. And then another thing that I noticed was I'm actually really high on Mandibuzz in doubles. I think that I think it's just great. It's bulky with Snarl. I think it's great. I think Umbreon's a little better, but I think Mandibuzz is right there with it, and I think it's great value in Tier 3. I think the only issue is what you said. I think it's the offensive pressure. I think Rillaboom's good. Volcarona's great, but that's your only redirection, right? So, like, most of the time, if you're going to be bringing Volcarona, you're going to be using it for redirection. He's got the weakness policy potential with Regirock, but other than that, I just see a lot of support and bulky offense that with, like, not that great offensive stats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One form of offense I do see that could be really good is sort of just like weakness policy on the Hitmonlee and then draining kiss it priority with the Comfey and then trigger Unburden. Like I've run Unburden Hitmonlee on the ladder before with Sylveon and it's probably similar. It hits hard when people aren't expecting it, but people prepping for it, I don't know how that will do, but I think that's sort of the wild card set in this. Tay, what are your thoughts on the team?
That set sounds kind of disgusting. Like just hearing that, that's crazy. But like looking like at the Fletchinder, like before this, he didn't even have that. He had the who did he have before that? Miltank. He had Miltank before he got Fletchinder,
Right.
because Fletcher wasn't even available. But I can't stand what's this thing called? The Comfey.
Aurora?
I can't. No, Comfey. I can't stand Comfey. I've always hated Triage. It's just done a lot of terrible things to me. I've almost gotten swept by it. As weird as that sounds, but yeah, I think that initial core, the Fire, Water, Grass, is a really good core for him. Those 3 mods I think work really together. But like, yeah, kind of like what you both said, just the underwhelming amount of offensive pressure. I personally think he only has 2, and those are his 2 Tier 1s. Other than that, everything seems more of a support. You kind of have to judge the Hitmonlee off of a certain set, otherwise it's kind of underwhelming.
Right.
And then everything else is just kind of a support-ish mon thing. Does the Alolan Duck Trio get Arena Trap? Or is that banned?
Arena Trap
Is it
isn't
Arena Trap?
banned. I think it's got like the tangled hair ability and not
Yeah,
Arena Trap.
yeah, it's got tangling hair.
Mm,
So, and it
okay.
also has the steel typing.
Hmm.
Yeah, okay. So,
Which, and by
I
the way,
mean,
he doesn't have a dragon type to finish that core. So,
yeah, yeah. I mean, other than that, I think that's just kind of what I feel about his team. It's not bad.
right. No, I don't
It's
think it's bad.
just, the underwhelming amount of offensive.
Yeah, I get that. I do think Hitmonlee is the X factor, like I said, both that weakness policy set and just a grassy seed unburden set could
Hmm.
be threatening, but it does he does have more support options than offensive options, just looking at it as a whole. But with that being said, Hunter, nope, you're not going to tackle your own team. Tay, why don't
Yeah.
you tackle Hunter's team?
Nice. Okay. I like before the draft had went on and whatnot, I didn't really look into the draft just because I knew I wasn't gonna like be a part of it.
Right.
But when I was looking at it today, I was really surprised that Amoonguss was a tier one. For some reason, that personally doesn't make sense to me, but I can see why it's a tier one. But the first thing that stood out to me was the Polytoad and the Kingdra. And that's obviously a rain mode there. And
Mhm.
I love rain because I had a lot of success with it in my first season. Um, I think someone finally took the Snorlax away from Jazz, which is good. And I do like the Metagross too. He has the, let me see. No, he actually doesn't. He actually doesn't have the Fire Grass core like I thought he did. Um, but also I do see like some sort of a trick room mode here.
He does have
Got the
Fire Water Grass
Scrappy.
if you count Reboot. Because he's got that
Oh
and
yeah,
Amoonguss. Yeah.
Among Us is technically, yeah, Among Us is a grass type. You're right. Oh, but yeah, so he does have that core. Um, but I do see a trick room mode in here with this team as well. But I think Hunter's team is actually pretty solid. Um, I would rank it really high if I was doing ranks and stuff like that. But um, yeah, I think Hunter's a good enough player to know what he has to do. But um, Hunter's team is pretty solid, and I just love the equal amount of offensive as well as support with
Mhm.
different kind of techs and whatnot.
Yeah, definitely. I'd say he's got a pretty solid team. Metagross on a rain team and Amoonguss on a rain team are both generally very solid options. One thing I will note is I think he goes a little heavy into the Trick Room mode with Vikavolt and Snorlax. I really don't think you need both of them, and then having Behemoth as the setter. Like, it's a good mode, and I personally really like Behemoth. I'm running it in the VBA right now, but I think if one of those was something else that complemented a fast mode better, I would have liked this team more. Because right now, if Crobat, which is a great tier 3 setter for Tailwind, uses Tailwind, Kingdra doesn't really care because it's already getting the speed boost from Politoed. It's really only for Metagross. Maybe for Scrafty or a fast Vikavolt set, but I think he could have used one more thing on that fast mode. But you know what? I think I will let Hunter talk about any of the things he wants to talk about for this set.
Yeah, sure. Well, I appreciate it, the nice words and everything, guys. I'm actually pretty confident in this team. It's probably one of the better ones I've drafted overall, I think. So one of the things that I really noticed was for the last 2 seasons, I think. Shout out to Maxwell and Ryan. They're always hindering me, like, dude, you need an electric type. You need an electric type for this. You need to take care of these bulky waters. And Jolteon was there for me, but I chose Vikavolt for one specific reason, and so I think it can operate in and out of Trick Room as a Dynamax option, and I think that's like extremely solid. Especially with the coverage it gets. It gets access to max airstream too. So I have speed control with that as a Dynamax option. And then on top of that, I think Crobat. Okay, when I saw Crobat in tier 3, I was like, okay, I need to pick this thing because I think it is tier 2 good. I think it's like one of the better Tailwind setters. That is not priority. And when I saw it, I was like, oh my god, I have to get Crobat. I have to get Crobat. So I actually took it early in tier 3. And if I'm not mistaken, I think in the chat people were like, "Oh, Crobat, like it's tier 3, like oh wow, like that's cool." But other than that, when I drafted this team, I wanted Dragapult or Metagross for my tier 1, and I got Metagross, which is great. And then I actually was weighing between Dusclops and Amoonguss for my tier 1 slot, because I didn't pick my tier 1 slot until round 9, and that was Amoonguss, I think. So I was weighing between Dusclops and Amoonguss because everybody else picked tier 1s, and I was like, well, I can get both. So like, which one do I go with? And then I was like, you know what? I want to try Behemoth. I really want to try it. And I saw your video with the meteor beam on Behemoth. I thought that was so sick.
Mhm.
And then I was like, you know what? Let's try it. And I know Dusclops was probably the better pick there, but
Yes.
I wanted to try Behemoth, and Amoonguss was right there for me. And I'm like, you know what? This helps me fix my Firewire Grass Core because I didn't have a Grass type. Tangela was sniped from me. I really wanted Tangela. Um, hey, Tay knows about Tangela, yes sir. So it was there for me, and I was like, you know what, let's just go with it. So I actually really like this team, and also Gigantamax Snorlax. I think it has obliterated me every single time I've gone up against it. So I'm like, you know what, I just think it's too good to pass up. So a lot of these picks were value picks for me. And I think I think it's pretty solid. So I appreciate you ranking me high, by the way.
Yeah, I have you as the number 5 team.
Yep.
And I will note for my VBA team, Behemoth is my secondary Trick Room setter, not my primary Trick Room setter,
Right.
because it is a little frail. And I've already let you know that I do think you should drop this Amoonguss for Dusclops, but we'll see if I'm proven wrong throughout the season. And I didn't know you were considering Jolteon instead of Vikavolt. Like,
Yeah.
I know the team that got Jolteon is a lot better because of it, and I probably would have said your team is better if it had Jolteon than Vikavolt, but I can understand the argument either way on that.
Right.
I think the Vikavolt is actually a really good pick for him. It alleviates ground weakness. It just gives him an extra ground, resistance.
Yeah. Reboot, I don't see that ever coming.
Yeah, it was just I was like, you know what? Why not? And just one more note on Vikavolt. I think that a special attacking Dynamaxer that is immune to Max Quake is just amazing. I think that is like such a good little diamond in the rough when it comes to Vikavolt. Like I think because it's very very specially offensive, and because it's not affected by Max Quake, I think that I just think that's great. With coverage to deal with Pokemon who have Max Quake.
All right.
So, yeah, that's
Cool. Since we skipped you this time, Hunter, let's let you go ahead and take Dina's team, which I know is a point of discussion between us because I had Dina at number 7, and I believe you had her team higher than that.
Yes, I did. I had her first. I think this team is insane. So first off, Cinderace is ridiculous. In Draft League, slightly overrated. I forget who told me that, and I was like, wow, you were so right. Cinderace is slightly overrated, and it's like, because you know what moves it's gonna have. Like you can kind of go through the list and see what moves it's gonna have, and like with the Libero, like you're getting the stab boost on it, and like next to Clefable, okay, so like Cinderace, right? Already good. Next to the best redirector in Draft League, in my opinion. Yeah, that is ridiculous. I think that's like the best 2 picks I think anybody has made in this league. Cinderace to Clefable. I think anything plus Clefable is just amazing. The Underwear redirection is just ridiculous. And then on top of that, listen to this. She's got Runerigus, okay, for the Trick Room. She's got Escavalier and Conkeldurr for under Trick Room. Oh my, talk about firepower under Trick Room. That is ridiculous. And then on top of that, Rotom Wash. Okay, don't sleep on Rotom Wash because Rotom Wash can Dynamax and it can be offensive and it can be support. With Ally Switch, I think, and then she's got Noivern for the Tailwind Setter, which I think is extremely underrated. So she's got, is Alolan Vulpix Fairy type too? I believe so, but even if it's not Fairy type, she's got Clefable, Escavalier, Noivern, which I think is actually one of the better Dragon Steel Fairy cores in this league. She's got Cinderace, Rotom, and Lurantis, which I think is extremely underrated with Contrary. Oh my god, I think it's so underrated. For the Fire Water Grass, she's got a Trick Room mode, she's got Espeon for Magic Bounce, she's got Riolu for the coaching, which she can use on Cinderace, Escavalier, and Conkeldurr, and Lurantis for that. I just think this team has so many options, and even though the speed tiers, okay, they're pretty good, and then she's also got Tailwind, and she's got great threats under Trick Room. I think this team can compete with any other team in this league, and on top of that, she's got Weather Denial with Bullpix. So there's nothing that can really take advantage of the hail on this team, which is the only knock I have.
Mm-hmm.
But she's got Weather Denial with Vulpix. So that's like even switching in a Vulpix on like a rain team and then having a threat that can take care of said rain threats or sun threats or sand threats or whatever the case may be, I think that is such good value for tier 5. So yeah, I had this team first actually. I think this team is the best in the league.
Mm-hmm. I have my top 7 teams all very closely bunched, and I like a lot of the things you said about this team. My few knocks are, I was the one who told you Cinderace is overrated in Draft League.
Okay, yes, so you, yes.
And I think my ranking kind of reflects that. I've never once in a Draft League gone up against a Cinderace and come away impressed with it. But I also know that I prioritize good answers to it a lot of the time too, or Pokemon that translate into good answers against it. I do think Clefable is a very good redirector. Rotom Wash I think is a very solid tier 2 pick. The Escavalier, great under Trick Room. The Conkeldurr is a bit weird for me. I think it's a bit over budget for tier 2, honestly. It's better than anything in tier 3, but I don't think it's in the top half of tier 2. I think it's a bit overrated after series 4 or 5. Like, I love Noivern. Noivern Cinderace was actually the best team I've ever had on the ladder, was a Noivern Cinderace team. So I love that. I love a lot of the things about this team. I think it does everything at about a 7 to 8 level, but I don't think it does anything at that 9 to 10 range, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
What do you think, Tay?
Honestly, just sitting here listening to Hunter kind of hype this team up, I kind of like it too, now that he's like saying everything about it. But I mean, the only thing that I kind of really noticed was the huge fire weakness. He has like 4 things weak to fire. So I think I can't even like think of really like the really good fire types that are in this league. I mean, the first one I thought of was Blaziken, but I mean, but the fire weakness is kind of huge for me. Isn't Noivern the fastest tailwind setter?
No, Noivern's base 126, I believe, so it's slower than Crobat.
Yeah, slower than Crobat.
Oh yeah, Crobat's like 140. You're right. Yeah, I think everything that Hunter kind of said really kind of makes this team really good, and I probably would have this team a lot higher. I mean, 7's not bad, but I kind of would probably have it top 4, just compared to the other teams. But obviously, Clefable was going to do a lot of work, and we all know how Cinderace is. Cinderace is just Cinderace, and yeah, you kind of can understand and really expect the moveset Cinderace is going to learn, like U-turn and Sucker Punch, high jump kick, Powerball, anything like that. It could probably be just that, you know. But other than that, I think just that fire weakness is kind of going to bug me a lot. But yeah, I do like this team a lot.
Yeah, especially since I think Cinderace is usually a steel type with Iron Head, so that's another fire weakness, if you want to count that. One thing, I don't think coaching works on Lurantis because contrary. I think that would actually lower its attack and defense.
True. I mean, you could run Leaf Guard, I guess.
Yeah, but then that gets rid of the contrary superpower.
Contrary, yeah.
Yeah.
But, yeah, very solid team. Definitely well put together. A couple picks that were a little over budget. And then Runerigus, I think, is the biggest question mark for me. It could be great. It could be a very underwhelming setter as well. Like, it could be one of the best setters in the league. It could be very underwhelming. And I think the season's going to hinge a lot on how well Runerigus performs.
I agree. I'm with you there.
Yeah.
All right. So up next is Ryan, and I will take this one. So Moltres fell to Ryan here. I have him as my number 2 in power rankings. Moltres fell to him here. Like I was talking with him as this was happening, and we were both just absolutely floored that Moltres looked like it was going to be available for him, because he did not have any plans for Moltres at all, because we both had it as a consensus top 3 Pokemon in the league. So it being here just meant he had to take it. The Indeedee, it's got terrain and it's redirection. It's going to work really well with Moltres. Solid pickup. The Blaziken, I sort of told him about. I'm not sure if I regret that decision yet or not, but it works really well with Indeedee. He loves Raikou. Haxorus is just a solid dragon type. It's got both Swords Dance and Dragon Dance, depending on what it might need as a setup option, or also can run a pretty strong Banded and Scarfed set, although it falls just below the base 100 speed tier, I believe, which is a bit unfortunate for speeding without the Scarf set. Marowak, just a solid, usually a Trick Room option. It can also run a fast mode. Slowking's a decent setter. Registeel, I think, has some upside in tier 3. It's a strong Pokemon, don't get me wrong. I have questions about how he's going to use it, but I don't doubt it will be done well. I don't know what he's going to do with Frostlass. Like, that intrigues me, and how hyped he was to get it. Slurpuff gets Unburden with the Indeedee terrain, and Drifloon also gets Unburden for potentially fast Tailwind. I don't know exactly what the Drifloon's going to do, but that would be my guess there. But I do think there's a lot of really solid things on the team, and obviously I have it as power ranking number 2, so I think it's a good team. If I did have a critique of it, it would be sort of the consistency of the Trick Room mode, and perhaps an over-reliance on Indeedee. Like, Indeedee's really good, but if that Indeedee goes early, then the rest of this team looks a lot worse. But if he's able to preserve the Indeedee consistently, this is definitely one of the favorites in the league in terms of teams to be reckoned with. What do you guys think?
You can go ahead, Tay.
Okay. Knowing how sleazy Ryan is, I know he can figure something out with this crazy team. I know he can figure something out with all of this, but I think Ryan's team is really good, especially with those first 2 picks, the Galarian Moltres and the Indeedee. Indeedee is like, it's such a bulky set. You can, it really tanks hits really well, so I know that's gonna work out for him really good. Blaziken is Blaziken. We know how that is. Is Raikou usually ran like as a support set, or?
You could run either offensive or support with it. Typically, he had it last season, and I believed it ran offensive more often.
Yeah.
Okay. There was something that I noticed a lot about this team. What was it? I don't remember what it was when I was looking at this earlier, but I think, it was like he has like 3 electric weaknesses, but he kind of covers that with the lightning rod. So, I mean, other than that, I think Ryan's team is really good, and I know there's a reason why you have it at 2, and rightfully so. Like, I don't want to take the player into consideration, but it's kind of hard for me to not to, just because I know Ryan personally. On a personal level, we went to college together, so like I know the kind of player he is, I know how he thinks, and I know he'll have something up his sleeve without a doubt.
Yeah, for sure. So we let Ryan have Raikou again. Cool. That was, yeah, okay. So another thing too, I think Haxorus is just, I think he picked Haxorus last, by the way,
Yeah.
like in the last round. So I think that was like really, really solid. And I actually had him second as well. I had him right below Dina. I think this team is super solid. Like Moltres falling to him. I know you guys, when you saw me pick Metagross, you're like, what? Like, why didn't you pick Moltres? It was right there. And I'm like, well, I want a Metagross guy. Like, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. So, like, Moltres falling to him is actually super, super fortunate. And he had plans, and he threw them all away for this Pokemon. So, you know, like, it's obviously great. It's one of the best Dynamax options in Draft League, I think, and or just like on the ladder in general.
Mm-hmm.
And then with Indeedee, like one of the best redirectors, like that's great. Plus terrain, great. And then he's got Blaziken, with Indeedee and Moltres, by the way, cool. And then he's got Registeel, which I think is one of the most underexplored steel types in Draft League. I think it could be super solid. It's great on the ladder. There was like a Registeel team running around for a long time. It was pretty good. And then he's got the Slurpuff for Unburden with the Psychic Seed, which is pretty sick. He's got slow. He wanted slow bro, but he slow king. He got slow king for the Trick Room setter, and he's got Marowak for under Trick Room with Haxorus. I think, well, Haxorus isn't Trick Room, but I think this team is like extremely solid. I don't think there's a Pokemon on this team that is out of place. He's got Drifloon for Tailwind, which is something that he needed and that he missed out on. I think he knew that, so he was just like, you know what, Drifloon time, and he just drafted it. So yeah, I don't think there's a Pokemon that's out of place. I think it's extremely solid.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a good all around team, and I think he can walk away from the draft really happy and look forward to his week 1 matchup against Bai.
Against Bai.
Yes. All right, so let's go ahead and look onto the next team. Tay, I believe you're up to take Matt.
Yes. I actually really like Matt's team. I don't really know why, but I think it's just because like he has a lot of mods that I've used before personally, like with the Diggersby and the Pelipper, and what's the other one? I can't even think of this tier 3 right now. But no, the other one.
Ludicolo.
Oh, that one. Yeah, just those 3. I just personally like those. So other than that, I mean, I think the Celesteela paired with the Grimmsnarl is really good. I mean, the biggest thing right now is like I personally don't see like his mons being that fast. For some reason his team just seems very slow. But I think having you have like a very, very bulky steel type with Celesteela, so and does the Rapidash get Trick Room at all?
I believe it does. And Archeops gets Tailwind, if I'm remembering.
I think you're right. So, I mean, he can kind of run the Trick Room, I guess, with Regidrago, but I mean, I think his team is pretty solid, and I think having it in the middle would probably be more accurate, which you kind of do. You have it at 6, so I personally never liked Salk. I think Salk is just a discount Hitmonchan, but I just don't think it's that good of a mind. But it is. I'm pretty sure he'll figure out some way to deal with it. But I also would not be surprised if he got rid of it. And if he did, then I would love that. But yeah, I think this team is pretty solid. Pretty mid-ground, pretty, right in the middle of stuff. But he was also the champion last season, so knowing him, he'll either make a lot of drops to where he finds better, synergies or whatever, or he just runs his team all the way again, and I don't know.
Yeah. So, he's actually my week 1, so I'm not gonna say too much. But what I will say is, he's got Pelipper Ludicolo, so I'm like almost certain that I snipe Politoed from him. That may not be the case always. Maybe he was going for budget rain, which he definitely has, but
yeah. Well, I know before the season he was very much an advocate that Pelipper should be tier 2, and then he called me out in draft chat saying, I'm going to make you regret having Pelipper in tier 3. So
really,
we'll see. Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Oh gosh. Yo, he's coming for blood. Okay, Matt. So how could you not like this team with that Diggersby just looking at you right in the face? I mean, like, come on. Like, Diggersby is such a classic. Plus, it's like extremely strong in draft league, especially. I know Tay knows a thing or two about that, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, definitely. So, like I said, I think his Dragon Fairy Steel Core is actually really good with Celesteela, Grimmsnarl, Reggie Draco, and the rain mode's nice. He's got the Raichu, so he has a really really good support option. Plus the potential weakness policy with the Celesteela, which is what a lot of people did with Moltres actually. Moltres, Raichu, and I'm assuming it can be the same thing if he ever wants to run that. That's kind of obscure a little bit, but you know what? Whatever. I mean, it's still possible. Salazzle's really solid. He needed a fast fire type on this team, I think. I think that's one thing that he really did well. I think he got Salazzle. He was complaining in the chat actually that the tier 4s in this draft are terrible. And then he drafts Archeops, Rapidash. And then I'm like, yeah, they're pretty bad. Archeops is pretty good though. I mean, it gets Tailwind. It's pretty fast, right? Yeah.
It's 110.
Yeah, so it's got a good speed tier. So it's like it's pretty strong too. I think it has like 5 attack or 140 or something like that, but it's
140, yeah.
140, yeah. So it's like pretty frail. But for tier 4, that's actually really really good offense, I think. Like 140 base attack in tier 4, I think that's really good. And then like Tay said, Rapidash gets Trick Room, so like I think that's his only Trick Room setter. But you know what? He doesn't really have a Trick Room mode to begin with, so I don't really think that's on his radar at all. But other than that, like yeah, I think this team's pretty solid. I had him top 5, I think, so we're pretty similar on that. Yeah, I had him 4th. I just think this team's like really solid overall.
Yeah, it's definitely a solid team.
Yep.
I do think the speed control is the biggest weakness.
Yeah.
Because Reggie Drago specifically really wants speed control, but I understand that what he's going for is he's going to try to outbulk people with the Celesteela behind screens, probably set up Leech Seed, and I don't know, play like that a lot of the time, which is definitely a way that this team can function really well. But I do think he's in danger early in a lot of games without the good speed control. I think Salazzle, really good pickup. He's got 4 or 5 Mons that can use Fake Out. I don't know if Sock can or not, but Grimmsnarl, Raichu, Ludicolo, and Salazzle all having it is decent. You're basically going to get faked out every game.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I actually have 2 more things to say about this team that I actually just realized. One, he does not have redirection, which is a little unfortunate, but I think the fake out makes up for it in some aspects. And then 2, I actually really like the rain mode with Celesteela. I think that so like it's prone to thunder, right? But like at the same time, you're also covering its fire weakness. So I actually think that's really good, especially since those are like 2 of its only weaknesses. Fire and electric, I think that's it. And
Yeah.
you cover one of them, so I think that's like extremely solid. And I applaud him for drafting rain with a steel type. Yeah.
Yeah. Way to pat yourself on the back there. I think,
I'm just kidding.
So just as sort of a more general meta thing, I think weather is going to be worse this season than in past seasons because so many people have it that it's more like weather wars than just I've got the weather mode that no one else has, and because of that, I'm going to be able to use weather. But I do think that Pelipper Ludicolo is, for the value of 2 tier 3s, one of the better weather modes.
Oh, absolutely. That's great value.
Yeah, but with that being said, I'm going to move on to the next team, and who is it? Hunter's turn? Think
Sure.
about that.
Yes.
We can go.
All right, Hunter.
Oh,
You're up.
yes. I have a lot to say about this team. So, okay, first off, I love Landorus. Okay, Landorus is one of my all-time favorite Pokemon, not just to use in Draft League, but I just love it on the ladder. I think it's like easily one of the most premier VGC mons you can think of. Like think back years ago. I know this is completely irrelevant, but like years and years and years ago, like Landorus is still prevalent to this day. It is just so good. And then on top of that, he's got a Sun mode with Venusaur, and anybody who's been in this league just knows how Hub was using Venusaur. Okay, yeah, like Venusaur is extremely solid. So with Sableye, Tay knows about Sableye. I know you do. Sableye is just
Yeah.
so solid. And I was actually expecting Hector. Hector has Charizard. Sorry for the spoiler. Um, Hector has Charizard, and I was totally expecting him to take Sableye, but he didn't. And then Sableye fell to Grant, and I was like, wow, that is a great alternate weather user. And plus, it gets Rain Dance too, so you can totally like deny other people's weather with it, like in any way that you can want. And I think the Quash,
I think it also
like
gets Sunny Day.
right. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, it's like a very, very good alternate weather setter. And then Azumarill's a beast. Musharna is a very, very good value pick for tier 3 because of how bulky it is, and it gets telepathy, and it's a trick room setter, and it's just very, very good overall. Jolteon is one of the better fast electric types in this format. Drampa is a very good trick room option, I think. Um, it's like, okay, so you can run like throat spray on it with hyper voice and then just delete everything, right? Like it's so good. I'm kind of confused on the Steelix pick a little bit. I think he just wanted a steel type and Steelix was just there and he was like, yeah, I've used it before. Let's just go with that. I see you have him number 1. Um, can you kind of explain why that is,
Yeah,
Dan?
absolutely. So for those of you who don't know, I did draft for Grant based on some work we did before the season, but he had something in his personal life that took precedence this weekend, so I was picking for him based on his list. Landorus falling to him, massive, massive value where he is in the draft. Another top 3 Pokemon, probably top 5 Pokemon that fell to him where he was picking. And then he was able to still get the Sun mode, which was his initial plan, was to take Venusaur first, and then getting it in the second round is awesome for him.
Absolutely.
I have this team as number 1 because, 1, I think it's got the best weather mode in the league, and I don't really think there's a lot of debate about that, because even if you do
Nope.
fight the weather wars, there's the secondary setter in Sableye that even if you switch in counter weather, it can still reset Sun that same turn. Azumarill to complete the Fire Water Grass core is massive. It's got the Belly Drum Aqua Jet sets that take souls, especially next to a Sableye that can quash things or fake things out. And then it's also got really good support options with a Sap Sipper set if it wants to. It's Trick Room mode. Musharna is very, very consistent Trick Room setter. Drampa is awesome under Trick Room. Steelix is really pretty good under Trick Room, especially because it gets body press with base 200 defense. And that's also part of the reason why Double is on the team, because I would never add Double onto any of my teams. Like, I don't think it's that good, but Grant is a big fan of some stupidity with Double giving Steelix plus 3 defense or whatever, and then body pressing with Steelix to win. Like, I don't exactly know what he does, but he's done it a few times, and it's a threat that has to be prepared for, and you don't normally get that out of a tier 5 pick. Like, I just think overall, while this team has a good Trick Room mode, it's got the best weather mode, and on top of the weather mode, it's got Landorus, which is going to operate really well in that weather because it weakens water.
Yep. Absolutely. So Tay, what do you think about this?
I actually really love this team. I think those first 5 mons, honestly, the first 6, they're all just really nice for him. Especially those first 4. That Sun mode is disgusting. This team is a whole W. Kind of like we guys said about technically having 2 Sunsetters paired with that Venusaur. It's just going to be nasty because if you take down one and he has another one. And y'all know how I feel about Sableye because I wreaked havoc with that thing last season, and it was the best pickup for me are probably just the best pickup in general at the entire season because it really kind of propelled my play and just my season in general. But I think this team is just really nice, and it has a rightful spot to be at the top. Even at number one, it makes sense, but I think even top three would be fine for this team. This is a new player too, so I'm really kind of excited to see what this team does, what this player does too. Yep. So
yeah, all I'm saying is that if I had this team, I would feel incredibly confident going into the league. I'm not saying I think Grant's going to win with the number one power ranking, because while he did help me do my prep last season a lot of the time, he's never played in a draft league before, so we'll see how he does. But I think he has the tools to compete.
Yeah,
most definitely. Also, I love Unpheasant, by the way. A lot of people sleep on Unpheasant. I think it's a pretty good tailwind setter for tier 4 at least.
I'm one of them. I'll sleep on Unpheasant.
Yeah. Well,
I don't think it's that good.
It's also got the crit set.
Like,
you can get the guaranteed crits.
Yeah, for sure.
Air slash.
I think this is the best team in the league, and I drafted it, but it's not my team, so I don't know how I feel about that overall. But this team's going to be good.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, I will go ahead and take Charles. His first pick was Naganadel, and I just cheered loudly when that happened because I love Naganadel and I really wanted it to get drafted, so I was happy that it did. The rest of the team is Heatran, Lipard, Corviknight, Mudsdale, Aromatisse, Heliolisk, Gastrodon, Orbital, Lickilicky, and Cryogonal. I think first off, to look at the pros of this team, Lipard, Naganadel is going to be good, and Lipard Heatran is going to be pretty good. The Corviknight is a very solid setter in Tier 2, something I potentially would have considered if it came back to me. The Trick Room mode overall is decent, Aromatisse being a very good setter, and the Mudsdale operating decently in Trick Room. But Heatran without redirection, it just has so many weaknesses, and while he does have Tailwind, it's not the fastest Tailwind option. Like, I think this team is middling on a lot of things. Like, it's got some really great pieces, but I don't see them working together quite as well. Like, especially that Heatran. I was talking to Ryan, who had Heatran last season, and Heatran without redirection is very, very suspicious. Like,
yeah,
it can be decent, but it's also got some potential weaknesses. And then the overall damage output, I think, is relatively low for this team. Like, outside of Naganadel Heatran, he doesn't have a lot of things that are just going to give it that extra oomph. So that's why I have it as my 12th ranked team. What do you guys think?
Okay. So I actually had it relatively low too, but I actually bumped it up a couple spots because I was like, man, these lower tier Pokemon, I don't really know. And then I did some thinking. So let's so I'm just going to start by saying I do not know what Lickilicky is planning on doing. But let me tell you something about Orbeetle, okay?
Lickilicky is 100% just for thumbnails. Go on.
Yes, dude. We love Licky though, that's for sure. So, let me start with Cryogonal for first, okay? So Cryogonal, I was like, why in the world did he pick Cryogonal? I'm like looking around, I'm like looking at his ability, I'm like, you know what? Levitate user cool. Kind of helps Heatran, but kind of doesn't because you're still weak to Steel. You know, it gets Aurora Veil, that's pretty cool. Don't really have a Hail setter, so that's kind of unfortunate. And then I'm scrolling down and I'm like, Triple Axle, huh? And then I'm like, look what Pokemon he's got on his team. He's got Mudsdale. So, weakness policy, stamina Mudsdale with Triple Axle is a threat. That is a threat. Okay? That is a threat. And I think that is super good under Trick Room. And you know what his Trick Room setter is? He's got two. He's got Aromatisse and he's got Orbeetle. I think this team has a lot of potential, but the issue is he's got no redirection. And okay, so you're trying to, like, I don't really understand how you're gonna try and get up Trick Room for this Mudsdale if you don't have redirection. But you know what? It is what it is. There's a lot of Pokemon that would love redirection on this team. For example, Heatran, like you mentioned. I think Naganadel would love a little bit of redirection here and there. I think Mudsdale could use redirection, assuming since if you're going to be going the weakness policy thing, you're very vulnerable to strong water and grass max moves. Um, Corviknight doesn't really need it. He has a lot of really good support with Aromatisse, and I think Gastrodon is pretty good in tier 3. Um, it's not like the best tier 3, but since he needed a water and, well, he already ground type, but Gastrodon's really great. Um, Very bulky, can operate under Trick Room, which the majority of his team is relatively slow. Um, the Heliolisk, I think that's relatively unexplored. Um, I think it could be good. He's probably got some plan for it. And then Lipard in tier 2, um, that's probably, I'm not that big on Lipard. I think somebody had it for like 2 games last season and then dropped it because it was so underwhelming and there were just better options.
So
But if he
Ryan
prefers,
dropped it and then said he
it was
regretted
Ryan.
it. Ryan dropped
Really?
it and said he regretted it for the rest of the season
Do you remember why?
because he loved the support options on it, and I think Sunny Day with it to activate the Heliolisk and Heatran are good options. And it's got
Great.
Prankster fake tiers, it's got
Right, for
Snarl,
Naganadel,
it's got
yeah.
Unburden sets. It's
Right.
really good, I think.
Yeah. But okay, so I think when you're lacking redirection, like a lot of these Pokemon are just kind of like, why? Um, and I mean, I love Corviknight, but is that his only Tailwind setter? I think that's his only Tailwind setter. And I think you said it. It's kind of slow. It's like it's not as consistent as a Tailwind setter, although it's very bulky and is a great max option, that's for sure. But you've got a lot of Pokemon on this team that really want to Dynamax, like Naganadel, Heatran, Mudsdale. They can all not Dynamax, but they all kind of want to. And then Gastrodon's another one of those Pokemon where you're like, yeah, late game Gastrodon's actually really good as a Dynamax option. But I did not actually know that about Lipard, that Ryan regretted dropping it. I was completely under the impression that he dropped it because he just preferred other Pokemon over it.
No, and I think he's running it in the MBC as well.
Yes, they are. And then I think Aromatisse is a really, really good, solid support Pokemon in general. Like, it gets Heal Pulse, Helping Hand, stuff like that. Plus, it sets Trick Room as a Fairy type. That is actually very valuable because you're not weak to Dark moves. And a lot of Trick Room setters, I think the majority of Trick Room setters are Psychic type. So not having that Psychic typing is really good, I think.
And I believe it's immune to Taunt as well.
Yes, with Aromavale?
Aromavale, something like that.
Yes. I think it's got Aromavale, yeah. So that's like as a built-in mental herb. Yeah, it's very, very solid. And it's very, very bulky too.
Yeah. I actually am on the Lipard train. I think it's deservingly to be in tier 2. I think it's kind of nasty. Dan took the words right out of my mouth with the Sunny Day setting up for Heliolisk and Heatran. I think that's really cool, along with the Prankster fake tiers and all that stuff. So I think Lipard is actually really decent for this team. And then Hunter, you kind of talking about that triple axle on the Mudsdale. I didn't even really notice that when I first looked at this team, but that's kind of nasty. I think that's a huge threat. But I mean, first couple of things I really noticed was I'm very nitpicky about weaknesses, and I just kind of noticed a fire weakness. But I mean, he kind of covers that with flash fire on the Heatran, so he can kind of plan that out in a way. But I think this team is kind of a middle of the road team, and I think he can do some things, but it also kind of just depends on sets and matchups and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's a team that can perform, but there are just enough things that make me nervous. Like even that triple axle set, that's a lot of moving parts because you got to get trick room set up, then get something else in, then you like that. I don't like strategies that have too many moving parts because that's too many times where something can go wrong. Like it can definitely work, and if he does pull it off, it will be sick every game that he does it. But there's a lot of opportunity for it not to happen too.
Yeah.
But moving on, I believe. Let's see, who took this last one? Did I do that?
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
Yes,
All right, then who's on Jess?
that'd be me.
Yeah,
All
go ahead.
right.
I don't know. For some reason, she always gets Mimikyu, and she always Dragonite. I don't get it. Whether if it's doubles or singles, she always gets those two mons in some form or way. And even in Incineroar. But she I mean, she can technically have a fire water grass. Oh, actually, no, she does have it. I didn't even see the Slowbro, but I like her team. I think it's decent. I think having the Savali kind of helps her team out a little bit, just because it gives it a little bit more diversity. Because you can run that Savali any way you want to. But I think I don't have like too much thoughts on her team, but I mean I do think it's pretty decent. Another middle of the road team. But yeah, I don't have really much to say about her team.
Yeah,
Well,
I play her
go
week
ahead.
1, so I'm not going to say too much about it. I will say that this is a team where it shows the weaknesses in my methodology, because I'm not rating the Mimikyu Dragonite team higher just because Jess is controlling it, when we know that Jess controlling it is going to play it better than most other people because she always plays with Mimikyu Dragonite and does well with it. What do you think, Hunter?
Okay. Well, I see a lot of modes on this team that I really like. So Kartana and Incineroar is automatically just great. They're both pretty prevalent in the meta right now, at least on the ladder. So I think they're like relatively versatile to work in Draft League. I think you know what's coming with Kartana, but Incineroar, it's one of those Pokemon that you know what's coming, but it's still such a nuisance, especially if you don't have anything to deal with it or any ways to kind of shut it down. Mimikyu, she uses Mimikyu a lot. It's pretty good, and then she loves using this Dragonite set, which, like I said, or like you said, Dan, it's really hard to not rank this team higher because she has Mimikyu Dragonite, but you know what I mean. And then I know about the Silvally. I had it last season. It's very good. Parting Shot Snarl support, which is just, oh my god, incredible. And you can type it any way you want. 95 stats across the board, so it's very, very good. She's got the Hail mode with Vanillux Arctozolt, right? Is that what? Yeah, Arctozolt.
Yep.
She's got Sand with Sandaconda. She doesn't have anything to take advantage of it though, which is kind of unfortunate. But you know, you can only do so much. And then I think Slowbro in tier 3 is insane value. I had it last season, and it was my secondary Trick Room Sweeper. Oh my god, that thing put in work. I think Slowbro is going to pop off, especially for a tier 3 pick. And that's also a Trick Room setter, so she has 2. I think she has 3. Does Wobbuffet get Trick Room? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. So she's got 2. And both of them are very consistent, I think. With Mimikyu, you can run Mental Herb on it, right? Because it's got Disguise. So you don't have to worry about it getting one shot. And then the only issue with that is it's another one of those teams. It doesn't have redirection. Like I think Mimikyu with redirection would have made this team so much better. And I think Pokemon like Slowbro with redirection, like it's okay. So Slowbro is not as consistent as a Trick Room setter because it doesn't have redirection. You know what I mean? So like you have to either run Mental Herb or Focus Sash, or it's constantly, it's very bulky, but it's at risk of failing without redirection, like even more than it already was, right? And then Beware is just a solid Pokemon overall, especially under Trick Room, like it's slower, so you know it's pretty good. And then Sandaconda, relatively unexplored. I like using Unexplored because a lot of Pokemon who don't get a lot of love are getting love this season, and I just love to see it. So, Santakana, she needed the ground type. It was pretty good. The one thing that I really like about this team is the Solvali paired with Incineroar. I think you can Intimidate and double Snarl on the same turn. You get one Intimidate and double Snarl. I think that's one of the best Intimidate Snarl cores in this league. I think it's just so good, and the versatility on Savali really expands her type synergies a little bit. So like if she really wanted an ice switch in, instead of switching in like Slowbro, or if she didn't bring Slowbro, or whatever the case may be, she can just run Silvally Steel and then just switch it in, and or not Silvally Steel, like Silvally Fire, or like something like that. You know what I mean? Or Silvally Water. Like it's very the synergies are very good with Silvally, and I think with Parting Shot, oh my gosh, I think the sky's the limit with this team. Unfortunately, I just think a lot of teams are just better. And another thing that I realized about this team is it doesn't have a whole lot of speed control, right? I don't see a Tailwind user on this. Does Dragonite get Tailwind? I doubt it.
I doubt it. I don't think so.
believe so.
So no Tailwind. So her team's relatively slow unless she's using Scarf or Trick Room, which is definitely an option because she's got two setters. But again, no redirection really hurts her. So I actually agree with you on this ranking. I think I had her 9th overall on this ranking. So yeah, I definitely agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think even having 5 fighting weaknesses, that's a lot for me. So like 5 of her 11 mons are really weak to fighting, and that's just not. I don't know. That just does not sit well with me.
Right.
All right, well, let's go ahead and look at the next one. Hunter, I believe it's you. You're going to be roasting my team. Go ahead.
Oh, stop it, dude. Your team's great. I had you 4th on mine, I think. I had you 4th. So, I know there's a lot of things on this team, that are just insanely good. For example, the Prankster Tailwind. You have the best Tailwind setter in the league, dude. You have Tornadus, and you sniped that from me. So, pat yourself on the back because I would have
Okay,
duplicated the championship
I didn't
core.
snipe it from you. Tornadus is like a top 5 Pokemon, and I got it at number 12. You weren't getting it
look.
in the second round.
Come on. Hey, there was a chance if you didn't take it, okay? There was a shot. Either way. So I really like so you're like it's kind of I don't want to say like you took inspiration from Matt, but it's actually very similar to what Matt won with last season. You had Tornadus, and then you had a Pokemon that's really strong that really, really, really loves Tailwind, and I think that's Garchomp. And even though Garchomp's relatively fast, I think the ability to run Adamant with Tailwind is just, I think it's just so good. And then on top of that, you got Primarina, which is just an amazing, amazing bulky water type. And then you also have the Aqua Jet on Primarina for Colossal, which is great. You got Tangela, which is a very underrated redirector with the Eviolite. I think it's very good. And your Firewater Grass is probably one of the best in the league, no doubt in my mind. And that's including Arcanine. That's not even including Colossal. You've got Arcanine, so you've got Intimidate Snarl support with Arcanine. You also have Will-O-Wisp. And then on top of that, you've got beat up shenanigans with it with Luxray. Luxray gets beat up.
Diglett.
So, yeah. So it's very, very good. And then on top of that, oh, and Diglett too, right?
Yep.
And then on top of that, you got Cofagrigus, which I was actually looking at for a Trick Room setter, by the way. But then I was like, like I don't know. I didn't have Intimidate, so I went Scrafty instead. I think Cofagrigus is really good. Copperajah. Okay, so Purloin. Purloin's pretty good. Copperajah. Okay, look. A lot of people clown Copperajah, but under Trick Room, that thing's a threat. Okay. That's all I'm gonna say about it, cause I'm gonna get heat from both sides of the argument, cause we have a debate in this league about Copperajah like every day. So. I think the double Intimidate with Luxray Arcanine is really solid for you, and they both get Snarl too, right? So like, I think that's like really good. And then Purloin is just budget Lipard. It gets the same exact moves, it's just stats are worse. I think that's incredible value for tier 4. Overall, dude, man, like this team is just so solid. Like, Tay, what do you think about this team, dude?
Man, I love this team, dude. Oh my gosh, it's so solid. I mean, first of all, he has my favorite mod in Luxray. I love Luxray to the death of me. I wish it was better on the physical side. I wish it's got better electric physical moves and whatnot, but I still love it regardless. So having that for me just bumps it up. But yeah, I think with those first 6, I think those mods are just really good together. The Aqua Jet on the Colossal, that works really well. Double Intimidate. I mean, you got 2 mods that I used last season in Garchomp and Tangela. I started off really slow with Garchomp, and then I just started figuring stuff out. And I mean, Tangela was a huge thing for me too. So, and then the Tornadus too. I don't know. I think this team is so. I probably would have had this team in my number 1, to be honest with you.
Really?
But yes,
Look at that. Man.
I love this team, man. This team is so solid, dude.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah,
I think
I was probably modest
sorry.
with number 3, but I think my top 4 are just all really close.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Yeah, you were talking about Snarl plus or double Snarl and Intimidate. I'm like, what about double Intimidate, double Snarl? Because I can do that, and it's gonna be so bad when
It's gonna be nasty.
It's gonna be so bad, but it's gonna be fun.
Right.
Yeah, there are a couple sets.
You need
What was that?
I was gonna say like a really solid Steel Dragon Fairy core too.
Extremely.
Yeah, overall, I'm very happy.
Copperajah is questionable.
We'll see. I'm not 100% sold on it, but people who I have confidence in say it is a great sweeper in Trick Room, so I'm gonna test that in Tier 3.
For sure.
My plan went completely out the window when Tornadus was still available at pick number 12. Because going into the draft, I was very strongly considering drafting Primarina there at pick number 12. And then I got it on the turn anyway, because my thought was I wanted 2 tier 2s that were tier 1 last season, but then I sort of settled. I'm like, okay, I can get Tornadus a tier 2, and then my other tier 2s be tier 2s instead of tier 1s. And then I still got Arcanine in round 4, I think, after picking up Garchomp.
That is insane value for round 4.
And then in the second to last round, getting Colossal. I don't know what happened.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah, that I just left my tier 2 slot open and I kept seeing Colossal. I'm like, I'll consider it, and then I let it go, and then I'll consider it, then I let it go, and then it finally came back. I'm like, I gotta pull the trigger on it because no one's.
Definitely.
Yeah, I didn't really care about tier 5, and I didn't draft Diglett. I just did it in the free transaction period because it's base 95 speed beat up for Arcanine.
Yeah, pretty solid.
Gosh.
But I'm happy with the team.
I would be too.
Moving on, we've got Maxwell's team. I think, am I handling this one? I think this one's me.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
So we got Tapu Lele, Wolf Glick in Dracovish cosplay, Blacephalon, Gigalith, Tangrowth, Toxtricity, Umbreon, Halucha, Glaceon, Sandslash, and Klinklang. The first thing I notice is he also has a discount weather mode with Gigalith and Sandslash. That is probably going to be decently solid, but definitely not his main mode because he's got the big boy weather mode with Gigalith and Dracovish. So I think that's going to be his main mode, and it's going to be very solid. And Lele as a support mon with that, like support isn't it just puts out the Psychic Terrain and does damage, but Psychic Terrain being support. He's got the Unburden that pairs with the Psychic Terrain. He's got the Redirection. He's got Umbreon, which is a great tier 3 support option. Klinklang's one of the better tier 5 options. Glaceon is probably going to be good in tier 4, would be my guess. I've built with it once or twice before and liked it, but we'll see how it does in draft. overall, I have this rounding out my top 4, which is me, Grant, Ryan, and Maxwell, and I think that you could put those 4 in any order in my mind, and it would be pretty reasonable. But yeah, I think this is just a solid team, probably synergistically the best team in the league, even if it doesn't have the same power level of threats as me, Grant, and Ryan, for example. But it does have the same. But it does. That's not to say it's low power. It's got the power to compete with any team in the league.
Yeah, most definitely. There are a couple of things that I really, really like about this team. One, you have flexibility with the Hawlucha to activate its weakness policy. You can use Ice Shard on Glaceon for the weakness policy. So, and then you can also, I didn't mean flexibility on the weakness policy. I meant flexibility on the Unburden. And then you can also use it in Psychic Terrain, which is that was premier for a long time. It was Hawlucha and Didi, but he's got Lele instead of Ndidi. Big whoop. Like, Tapu Lele is ridiculous. And then he's got the Blacephalon, which can also have Expanding Force, so it's pretty good size spam. And then he can run like Scarf Lele with Specs Blacephalon, and then if he gets 2 Okos with Blacephalon on the Expanding Force, like that's a +2 Beast Boost, dude. Like that is absurd. Like turn 1, like can you imagine that? Like that's ridiculous in itself. And then he's got Dracovish Gigalith, which by the way, again Gigalith, I'm telling you guys, man, Gigalith is like just better than the Hippowdon, and like I think Maxwell is gonna show us this season like why that is. He can like he's got the Dracovish. Oh my gosh, he picked Dracovish like second to last or something like that.
Bruh.
I'm like, yeah, I'm not even kidding. And I was like, oh, he's going Sand. Okay, he's picking Excadrill. And then I'm like, no, he's going Dracovish. That is insane. So he's got Tangrowth, which is a great redirector. He's got Sand Slash, which is a Sand Rush user, so like the budget weather mode, like Dan said. He's got the Hawlucha, which is flexible with Glaceon, Ice Shard, and Psychic Seed. He's got Umbreon for support, which is very, very solid, by the way. I love Umbreon, especially in Draft League. He's got Toxtricity, which, for Tier 3, that's pretty good value. He didn't have an Electric type. I think and it's also like a pretty good max option, too. Like next to Tangrowth, I think that's like pretty good. And then Kling Klang, I think he just... I don't really know what in the world that does. I'm pretty sure he gets Trick Room, right? I think he gets Trick Room. And then it's a Steel type, so that's pretty good. But yeah, I had this team third, actually. I think this team is, like, I swear, like, this is such an echo chamber, but, like, the synergy is just so good on this team. So good. He has so many modes, and I just think this team is so good. I just think it's so good.
Yeah, I don't have much to say. You guys kind of already think his team really, really good. I personally think he has the best evolution in Umbreon. But yeah, everything that you guys have really said, I was gonna say anyway. I think his team is just really good though.
Facts.
Yeah, definitely very solid. Will be threatening, especially early in the season as we see what sort of things he is developing with it.
Yep.
I'm excited to see how the Tangrowth performs on this team as well. And our last team we're looking at is Hector, Tay, I believe, or is this one me? This one's me. Or
I think it. I don't know, it doesn't.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, it is fine. Yeah. Okay. I don't have really much to say about his team. Yes, Charizard, Regieleki, Duraludon. There was one thing that I wanted to say about this team when I first looked at it, and I can't remember exactly what it was. But I will say that I hate Klefki. I can't stand Klefki. Man,
I hate
every time someone drafts Klefki, I get really annoyed. But
cringe,
I mean,
dude, I can't.
It's very good, but man, it just does a lot of stuff that I don't want it to do, and it shouldn't.
Right.
It shouldn't exist, but it's okay. I just looking at this team, like based off of first judgment, it just seems like a middle of the road team. kind of mid ground. Not really too much excitement to it. I mean, with Charizard and Regieleki, he can got to do, but other than that, I really don't see much with this team. I think having Aerodactyl was really nice for him too, though. I've always liked Aerodactyl. I think Aerodactyl's somewhat underrated. But yeah, like I don't really have much.
Yeah,
All
I would have.
right, Dan, you want to go?
Yeah, I would have loved a Trick Room setter on this team. I don't think I'm seeing one.
Yes.
But I was very excited with his first few picks. You know, Charizard, great. Aleki, great. Klefki, Setting Sun for it, great. Alolan Persian, really good support. Duraludon, decent option in tier 2. But at the end, like, a lot of these picks are weird and don't make sense for me on this team. First of all, Turtonator's a tier 4, but it's in a tier 3 slot because he picked 3 tier 4s and 2 tier 3s instead. Weezing, I feel like it hurts his team more than it helps his team because it's bad for Regieleki, bad for Charizard, and bad for Klefki. It could be good in certain matchups if he needs to shut off key abilities, but overall, like, it's going to be very, very niche.
Right. Like, extremely niche. Like,
Yeah.
It hurts Duraludon, too, because, like, it gets rid of what Duraludon's used for, like, a lot of the time, you know what I mean? Like, its ability is just so good. Like, it ignores redirection, and then Weezing's like, yeah, no.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong. Pikachu shuts down Regieleki if they're out together. I don't think they'll ever be out together, but
I think it does.
yeah, I just think there's a lot of constraints on how he plays this team that he's unnecessarily put on himself. Like, it has a lot of really good pieces, and if the bottom half gets transactioned a decent amount throughout the league season, I think it has potential to be one of the better teams. But in terms of just the team, I think it's just missing. You could cut this off after the top half and we'd be talking about basically the same team. There's not a lot of things that are supporting it in the bottom half.
Yeah, Miraculous, doesn't it get Sunny Day?
Probably.
Or no?
Maybe. I know it gets Storm Drain and I think Chlorophyll, so it's got decent abilities.
Yeah.
That's okay, yeah.
Bulk is awful.
Yeah. Like, I think he made some questionable decisions in the second half of the draft, but his first half is solid, and he'll be playing those first 6 Pokemon a lot of the time, I think.
I really would have loved to see Sableye on this team. I think Sableye takes this team to another level, but I mean, Klefki's fine too. I mean, it's the same thing. It's just I think Sableye offers you so much more utility than Klefki. Yeah. Like, the screens are nice, but you already get them with Aleki, right? And then, like, the fairy typing is nice, but I just think there's other fairy typings you could have picked. You already have a steel type with the Duraludon. I just think Sableye's better for this team, but he prefers Klefki, so we'll see.
Well, Sableye wasn't available on that wheel pick. Like,
well, he could have taken it over Persian, but I mean, Persian's pretty good.
He picked Charizard and Aleki first, and then Sableye was gone before it got back to him on the next wheel.
Are you sure?
Yeah,
you're probably.
It got picked in the 4th round. I picked it.
Okay.
For Grant.
Okay, so you got picked.
But yes, Sableye would have been really good on this team.
Yeah, most definitely. Oh wait, no. He would have picked Duraludon Persian, and then you would have picked Sableye after.
Is that right? It might be right.
So, like, if you picked in the 4th round, then he would have 4 Pokemon going because he was the wheel.
Yeah, you're right.
So, like, he could have had Sableye instead of Persian, but you know what? I think Persian's good. It's kind of like Sableye, except you don't have the prankster weather that you want for your Charizard. You have fast weather, but it's not prankster, and I think that's why he added Klefki, because he's like, dang, like, that would be really nice, and like Klefki does that. But I don't know. I think Sableye does everything that Persian does, but like with prankster.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think there are good pieces here, but I'll have to see how it comes together, especially the usage of the bottom 5 Pokemon.
Yeah.
All right, and I believe that was the last one. So my overall power rankings for the season go Grant, Ryan, me, Maxwell, Hunter, Matt, Dina, Hector, Jess, Toxic, John, Charles, Dark, Burst. And I could do tiers within those, but I'm just going to leave it numerically for now. But do you guys have any closing thoughts before we sign off?
No, I'm excited for the season. Just watching it as a spectator this time. Decently new players, some returning players. I'm excited to see what these new players do for this upcoming season. I'm really looking forward to see who steps and takes over the top spot.
Yeah, and to kind of echo off that, I'm really excited to compete this season. I somehow made the semifinals last season. I was just playing, and then I'm like, oh, I'm in the semifinals. Cool.
It's because you beat me and got lucky.
Yeah.
It's because you had Glastrier and then we banned it.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
had last year, Dusclops. Yeah, that was extremely good for me, and I was just like, oh, I win these games because I have Ice Horse. Cool.
Yeah, Glastrier is like Atlas holding up the world if the world is Hunter.
Yeah. Not even. You're not kidding, dude. So yeah, I'm excited to compete. This league is probably the most competitive league I've ever seen, or been a part of at least. I learned a lot from last season, and I think it just completely transformed my game. And everybody in this league is so friendly for the most part, except for Matt. When somebody says that Copperajah is bad, he gets mad, like pretty mad. So other than that though, yeah, there's nothing else I really need to say. Just thanks for everybody. I want to give props to everybody in this league for like being on track of their responsibilities, and just like doing everything on time, and nobody really forfeits games very much unless it's like very, very serious. Like there's nothing wrong with forfeiting games, but everybody's pretty much on track with what they need to be doing, and it just helps everything run so much smoothly. So so much smoother, I guess. So yeah, just thank you for everybody who's on their stuff. Literally, that's all.
All right, and with that, we're going to be signing off. Please let me know what your thoughts on my personal power rankings are in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. For Tay and Hunter, this is Dan, and we will see you guys next time.